Well, hello, one and all. Welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. And of course, I am your host, BMR. I want to appreciate and thank everybody for coming on in this afternoon, wherever you are, day, night, or evening, across the world. A little after 1 o'clock, Eastern Standard Daylight Time, where I sit here in the beautiful state of Michigan. We have a balmy 72 degrees. 72 degrees. A storm came through last night and after this show. For those that maybe don't know, I'm a big time gardener. I got a cool garden and a big flower bed. And I tell you what, the high winds kind of messed a lot of stuff up. So I got my buddy over dropping me off. I called my buddy. I said, hey, man, pick me up some dirt, some Miracle Grow. I got to do some transplanting at the end of my show today because it's an ongoing process. You know, winds in Michigan. I've been living here for all my life with a brief stint in Chicago, Illinois. And I got to tell you, the last 5 years in the summertime, the winds just, they roll in, and we never had winds. We get wind in May and April and May. Okay, that's expected, but not here on June 27th, you guys. So kind of frustrating. But enough of that. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Give me a thumbs up, turn on the alert bell, and leave a comment after the show. Also, subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube and the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. You can now find us on iHeartRadio and Spreaker. All of our shows are now on Spreaker in podcast format. So if you're driving in your car and you don't want to put it on YouTube and be distracted by the video, go to Spreaker. You can find all of our shows for free in the archives. If you want to help support what we do around here, the Super Chat is open. The Super Chat, of course, is a great way to support what I do around here and the rest of the gang. Of course, donations are not expected, but always appreciated, and we're grateful of each and every single one of you. You can become a BMR pirate. That's right. Join today. What you get? Well, here's what you get. You got a picture of my mug sporting a bandana next to yourself in the chat room. There's about 100 of you. Growing. It's growing. Thank you for that in advance. You can find us also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, pretty much all social media. All my social media, of course, is posted on my YouTube profile page. So go check that on out. And that is appreciated by everybody. And another thing, before I get on with our lineups throughout the week, I want to thank everybody that's bought my book. Bigfoot Michigan Rob presents True Cryptid Encounters Book 1. You can find that on Amazon. Once again, for those that have bought it, thank you ever so much. I do appreciate that. And leave a review. I'm now down to 7. I need 7 more reviews for Amazon to start pushing the sales. It's all analytics, much like YouTube. YouTube likes, comments, sharing it out, promotes the show. So on Amazon, they do the same thing with book sales. And I got to tell you, book 2 is done. I'm in the process of editing it right now. That will be out at the end of July. So get this one because book 2 will be at your doorstep right around the end of July. So I appreciate everybody that's bought that. Also, as y'all know, we're on like 7 days a week, it seems. Texas Front Porch can be found 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Mondays. Tuesdays, it's myself and Krista with Beyond the BMR, 9 o'clock in the East. Thursday afternoon, you're right back here with Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at 1 o'clock in the East. Later on Thursday, excuse me, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, 9 o'clock in the East. Monica Rollins has her own channel now, Our Paranormal World. And she's on 11 o'clock in the East on Thursdays. And good old BMR is going to be her debut guest. So check out and show Monica some love. Fridays back at the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. Find them at 8 o'clock on Friday. Saturdays, yes, it's official. I've been doing a Saturday night show at midnight with the gang. Usually Krista, Brandy, Tex, Monica Rollins. We're doing Saturday night at midnights for everybody. It's turning into quite a big show. So go check us out midnight Saturday. Truth or Tinfoil Sunday at 6. That's a separate channel. That's with Brandy and Randy. They break down photos and film on paranormal stuff, cryptid stuff, and they just have fun with it and ask, hey, is it truth? Is it tinfoil? A fun show. Audience participation is welcome in that show. Then Tex is the big true crime buff. Tex has Infamous Minds on Sundays also at 7 o'clock in the East with Miss Diva. That's a cool show if you are indeed into true crime. So thank you everybody for coming on in early, coming on late, or coming on in later. So I got a great guest I'm gonna bring up in a minute, and I met this guy in Alabama. Now I got Fisher of Spam joins us. A lot of you know who follow my show, and the rest of us, the Fisher of Spam is in the chat room. He's actually a moderator on this channel, and he's a great guy. And he sent me an email about a lot of his experiences he's had. I'm not going to speak for Fisher, but boy, it just dates back throughout his family, I believe. And again, I'll let him divulge that here in a couple minutes where I bring him on. But he's a great guy, and I got to tell you, I met Fisher of Spam in person in Alabama at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference. I love these conferences because, and I will say this, it was a great turnout. All the people that follow all our channels, a lot of you were there. And so it was cool for me to put the face behind the chat room moniker or whatever you go by, like Fisher of Spam. I now know his real name. I'm not going to divulge that. But I got to tell you, I didn't think Fisher of Spam looked anything at all like he looks like. When I thought Fisher of Spam, I'm thinking some old dude with nothing better to do, to be honest. But when I met the guy, he's a young, strapping, handsome young man that I met. He's the nicest guy in the world. He bought us lunch at the conference. We hung out with him later on at one of the restaurants, and just an all-around great guy. And I'm very pleased to have met him. And with that being said, I'm also pleased to bring him up. Excuse me again. My throat has got a tickle in it. I gotta have a drink in a second. I'm gonna bring up my new buddy, fan of the show, a fan of yours, Fisher of Spam.
Alrighty, mateys, hoist the colors.
Hoist the colors, my friends.
What's up, man?
Hey, man, thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah, my honor.
You know, it's funny, and it's not funny. It's just weird how I made mention about how, I know many people now, and many people on the channel and all the other channels. And, I couldn't place, and I always try to figure out what people look like, as we all do, that you never meet in person. Fisher Spam, man, I didn't think you being like your 20s. I figured you would be older than me and just some dude. But, man, so our impressions from the chat room were totally different. And I meant that with all respect, by the way, regarding you, and so it was a pleasure to meet you in Alabama, and thanks for the turnout and the support. And I pretty much hung out with you and saw you for a lot of the time down there. So thanks very much for that.
Hey, man, it was fun. We had a great time. I enjoyed every second of it. Miss it.
Yeah, I can't wait for another one. We're putting together our own little conference next year, and I'm not going to say much more about that. But we're planning on having a big a big conference. And for anybody that can't make conferences, I do recommend, especially if you follow the channels and like the cryptids, the paranormal. We're doing a cryptid paranormal UFO convention or conference. Me, the girls, and Tex are planning this. No,
Nice.
not disclosing the location yet. We're just starting this now because these things take 1 year to plan out, right? But we're planning on having cryptid speakers, ufology speakers, and paranormal speakers. So we're going to make it a smorgasbord of high strangeness here in 2025, probably in the fall. So if you've never made a conference, you got to check it out. So enough of that. It's a brief little. You heard it first here from good old BMR. That's a little a glimpse into the future, what we have going on. So enough of that. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a total fun. It's gonna be a blast. So, and I see Chris has joined us. And hello to everybody coming on in chat. Mindfork, Mickey, Diane, Scott M, Freaky Geek. I mean, I already got almost over 40 in here, which is quite cool for an afternoon. Edith Gomez. I'm just scrolling here. Audacious Amber, Roger Blair. If I don't say your name, it don't mean I don't love you. Keith from Michigan, Cowboy, a whole bunch of you guys. I can't get y'all. Moon and Noon. I love you all equally. Penny Van, hi, how you doing? So anyway, thanks for coming on in. Subscribe to our channels if not already. Give us a like, a thumbs up, and moving forward now. So Fisher Spam, you sent me some time ago a bunch of pretty cool emails, and I'm reading them, and I appreciate that for one. And if anybody has an encounter story, beyondbmr@gmail.com, send it on over. Man, I was reading this and I was just like, it was like I just almost study it because, quite frankly, you took a lot of time out to write me what you wrote me. And yeah, so I'm not gonna reveal what was in the email. I'll let you kind of get into that yourself or wherever you want to go with this. And so before we get the show started, if you want to introduce yourself and just give us a brief background, and then we can get on.
All right. So of course you guys know me, Fisher Spam. Man, I've got so many stories, and like you mentioned, man, it goes back into my family for as far back as I can remember. I've grown up hearing the stories. I mean, everything from devil chasing my uncles out of the woods in southern Ohio to chupacabras, chupacabra mostly, but it just, there's so many stories, and it kind of blew my mind when I got older to find things were just all throughout, mom's side, dad's side. It's crazy. There's so much. Could do a whole show on it. And then later on in life, I get with my wife, and it turns out, Lord, they've got so much going on too. It's insane. But it's been a wild ride. Having all that stuff in the background made me very curious and made me want to go look for answers too, because I've been interested in this stuff my whole life. So I'm not going to go into like all the craziness. I mean, guys, if you want to hear that, my stories are out there. You can find me really easy.
Well, if you don't mind, our audience do like. I mean, the premise behind this show is not really interview style. It kind of is in a way, but everybody loves a good story. And why don't we take it back to where you first came across something that was out of the ordinary, where you sat back and said, "Man, what the hell did I just experience?"
Okay. Well,
we got plenty of time. I'm opening the floor to you. You're my guest, and I know you got a lot in that brain, so you just let it unload.
Got a lot of empty space. Okay. Well, let's see. little bit of a loaded question, because once uh,
Well,
I've I grew up Pentecostal,
okay.
so the ideas of spiritual warfare and casting out demons was something I have experienced from a very young age. So I mean, it depends on your threshold of weirdness, really. If you want to see someone's body contort and start speaking in a language that's doesn't match their body, and all of a sudden their eye color changed, they got slits. I mean, if you want to count that as weird, pretty weird. I
Well,
mean,
that's definitely weird. And don't forget, here on the BMR channel, we embrace the weird. I embrace the weird.
yeah.
And that to me is ready. I'm getting chills right now because you know how, if you've followed me long enough, that stuff like freaks me out. But
Mm.
yeah.
See, I grew up in it, man. It don't freak me out at all. That's normal. When we become a Christian, that's what we're expected to do. That's what we're
Mhm.
expected to do. So for me, spiritual warfare is nothing new. Nothing new at all. But not to like toot my own horn or anything. That's definitely not where I'm trying to go with. It's just, but um, outside of that stuff, I mean, I think the weirdness generally started happening with me when I was probably around 17.
Okay.
I've got a hilarious Bigfoot story that everybody loves. I remember one time after band practice, because I used to play in a metal band. I played the bass guitar. I remember
I
one
wouldn't
time we
guess.
saw
I would
a
not have
UFO.
guessed that of you.
Huh?
I would not have guessed that of you. With the
Oh,
beard and hey, by the way, almost matching bandanas, everybody. So
it was on
you wore that. You
purpose.
wore that from me. I know. Thank you.
Of course, of course. But I mean, shoot, I remember being 17, man, and like getting out of band practice, and we're all out there hanging out, and seeing a UFO in the sky. And we, growing up here in Fife, we're like, we know the stories. Everybody has a story about UFOs from when all that went down. So we were like hanging out. We saw a light in the sky, real low and big. We're like, oh my god, is that a UFO? Let's chase it down. Why? I don't know. What else are we doing? Good point. Let's do it. So, and
Mhm.
we went all over 3 counties trying to chase these lights down. And every time we get close, it's like they just wink out of existence and pop up somewhere else. It's crazy. We did that till we just got bored of it. And I was tired of burning gas. Of course, gas was cheaper back then. So, eh.
Yeah. So you've seen a UFO, I guess. Why don't we go take it from there? What did you actually see that you actually had you wanted to chase down? Was it the triangle or the flying saucer we have? And it was that like give a description of like so were you looking up in the sky and said, wow, what's that's not an airplane. So you had to think it was
Cor-
something else. So you decided to chase this thing.
right. So, what we saw that night, and interestingly enough, for me, it's been the case almost every single time. Big old ball of light. I've
Mhm.
only actually had one daytime UFO experience, and uh, well, maybe two now. But the one time that I definitely got a good eyes on it in the day, it was like classic silver disc, very shiny up, maybe aluminum looking, I guess you could say. But yeah, most of the time though, for me, it's ball of light.
Darting about the skies and all these weird you
Yeah.
know, 90-degree angles. It's going, 20,000 miles an hour, then just darts off on a hard left or a
Yep.
hard 90-degree turn.
hmm I've
When it's the
seen that
ball of light,
numerous.
does it like light up the whole sky? Is it nighttime then? And it just lights up and illuminates the whole sky or wherever your surroundings are?
I mean, I wouldn't say the whole sky, but it definitely illuminates a good bit. A good bit. Yeah. Um, I'll tell you another quick story with UFOs. I'll tell you about my daytime experience because it's
Yeah.
an interesting one.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it
Um,
is.
so this obviously happens after like my main UFO events and all that there in Dawson, and me, the wife, the little one, and I think my mom. Yeah, we're swimming out in the pool, right, hanging out, having a good time, and I hear my chickens start to make a noise. And chickens, they have noises for like everything, to the point where they can even recognize faces. You have your own unique clucking noise for who you are. It's fascinating. But I start hearing them making an alert. And I was like, okay, something's going on. And we'd had a hawk problem. So I was like, okay, it sounds like hawk. So I stopped playing, and I'm looking around, and I'm not really seeing anything. But they're running, they're jumping underneath their coop, hiding from something that is definitely aerial for them. So I'm like, okay, if I can't see nothing here, let's look up a little higher. I start scanning the clouds, and all of a sudden, at about see if I'm facing them at 12, probably around 9 o'clock. All right. Up there in the clouds is a classic silver disc UFO just hanging out. And I'm just like, oh no. And I tell him, like, look, there's a UFO up there watching us, it looks like, because I mean, it's not too far up there. I mean, I can see it in pretty good detail, but it's, in the clouds. Everybody turns around. Mom catches like a brief glimpse of it, because as soon as I say that, this thing just behind the cloud, like it could hear us. It's crazy. My wife doesn't see nothing, and she's ragging me. Oh, you're just crazy. You're losing it. Seeing those critters a couple years ago fried your head. I'm like, no. Mom's like, I saw it. I was like, see, she saw it. I'm not crazy. So, I'm getting some ribbon. We're talking about it, but we're watching the spot. Then all of a sudden, this jet just comes screaming from the north, and full afterburners. I mean, it's loud, and it just punches through the cloud exactly where the thing was, like where it hit. It punched through the cloud. I'm like, oh, yeah, you still think I'm crazy? Huh? And then all of a sudden, not 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe at the most, another one from the west, full afterburners, punches through the same cloud. Now with the contrail, exhaust of their movements, there's a perfect X marks the spot in the cloud. So I'm vindicated. You still think I'm crazy? Yeah, you just saw what happened. And they're like, maybe it's a good time to get out of the pool. I'm like, yeah, I think I've had enough for the day. Let's get on out. So
I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to ask you a question, because you mentioned earlier about spiritual warfare and this and that, and this would have been a good. It's a good show to bring up something about. And a lot of people, their opinions vary when it comes to. We'll keep it on topic of UFOs right now, or aliens, if you will. You mentioned spiritual warfare several times, which I'd like to take a little dive into that here in a few minutes. But let me ask you your opinion on this. I don't know how many UFO sightings you have had, or if you've seen an actual alien.
Yes.
Do you think aliens are something that is actually extraterrestrial, or do you think that this is something that's demonic?
Ultimately, I'm going to say demonic. But, there's a lot to dive into, lots of research to be had to be able to come to that conclusion, and for me, it was the research that I had to do, and all the experience too played a part, because we all the time say it's all connected, right?
Sure.
And like, and in my instance, like I've said plenty of times, having one experience with a Bigfoot, a UFO, whatever, that's crazy enough, right? But for me, like, I mean, it runs the gamut, man. I mean, I've had UFO experiences, alien experiences, I've had Bigfoot experiences, I've had a dogman experience, I've had all the shadow people you want to experience. I mean, all these things that, typically speaking, we say is unconnected, right? It should be. Like, we think about them as separate subjects. But yet the chances and odds of me experiencing all these things should be astronomical. Should be. there's no reason for it. So I say, yeah, it's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah. Well, well, first of all,
And
you're in good company with that because I know you've watched enough shows where myself, the Blondes, Tex. To me, all this phenomena is connected in one shape or form. Is a is an is a shadow person a Bigfoot? Well, no, but there's a connection between all of this. Is there an alien a dog man? Well, no, depending on one's perspective, because some people think that perhaps dog man are aliens. Some people think
right.
Bigfoot's an alien. I'm not in that camp, but when I say connected, I think that especially people that are open minded, and they have that, as they always say, that third eye in motion. They all kind of serve the same purpose. They kind of, I think, are all on the same plane. It
Mhm.
just depends on how open you are to accepting what you're seeing, because a lot of us block that out. I
Right.
don't. You certainly don't. My group that I work with does not. So when you say that, should it be separate? Well, it should be separate, but it's not.
Right. So, like, let me see here. All right, let's go do a little bit of a theological slash history dive for a second. Let's go
Let's
down
do
this
it.
path. All right.
Mhm.
So when you read the book of Enoch, and also another companion book to read to that would be the Book of Giants. Super interesting read. And it's basically long version, Genesis 6, yada yada. We see what fallen angels, watchers, whatever, come down and do. And they corrupt all flesh. They have offspring born unto them, the Nephilim. They come across as giants most of the time, but there's also chimeras, which is a very interesting thing too. So the idea of multiple animals and human are also linked to the same event. And so we read in that book, what's going down. And at the end of it, we see what happens, right? So basically a message is delivered to them from God. Okay. And long and short story of it, man, is he calls them to repent. All right. They've done all this craziness, and yet he still says repent. And we can move past everything that's happened. All right. So what I find interesting about it is, generally speaking, we're told that they do not. But how many of them could have taken that deal? You know, if the possibility is open for them to do so, I would have to imagine that some did. Some had to have. None of us that we know of asked to be born, right? It'd be the same for them. Why not? So if we go down that path of thinking, okay, maybe some did. It looks like possibly that's, bars closed, don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. It's what it seems like. So where'd they go if they took the deal? Well, different dimension, different planets. Who knows? We don't have that particular answer, but we know that these subjects crop up in what we do and what we listen to and hear, right?
Mm.
So maybe that's what happened. Now, we don't know how time works there. So who's to say that's, they're out there hanging out, doing their thing wherever they went to. And then all of a sudden, they start having kids or whatnot, which seems like they're able to do. I mean, it's documented all throughout history that they did. So if they can go from here to there, and now we have stories that say they can come from there to here, who's to say they don't? Seems like they do. Now, it would seem to me like if they do that, they're now, if they come here, or even when they're there, whatever, they're in the flesh, right? They're in the flesh. So they decide to come here. They seem to have their own free will, obviously. So they can be just like us. You know, we can be good, we can be bad. the propensity of what we hear seems to be bad, in my personal opinion. So, does that account for stories of aliens, Dogman, Bigfoot? I think it does, personally. You know, and granted, I'm giving like the brief overview of like my thoughts and my theories on this. I mean,
Yeah. No.
there's lots of rabbit holes to go down and information to look at to be able to come to your own conclusion.
Well, yeah, everybody does have their own thought process, theories, hypotheses
Right,
from their own experiences, and like you mentioned, other shows or the people that you follow, and feel free to share what you like. We got a hour and a half show, and just you can just let it all out there. But I got to ask you this.
sure.
I think you mentioned something that I find to be quite interesting because I think the same way. I don't consider all dogmen evil.
Mm,
Now, most of the stories we hear aren't very good, but most of the stories with dogman is, to me, what I've come across, they just like to scare the bejesus out of us. Right now, we've all heard about the LBL. I'm not going to get into that, where the tragedy that struck there, which everyone seems to believe that was a dog man. But then you've got Bigfoot. I, for one, don't trust Bigfoot. I've said this ad nauseum. There are people that say he's the friendly forest giant. I suppose that he is, depending on your location, depending on the clan of Bigfoot. Because just like a family unit, there are good families and bad families. And really, Bigfoot to me is a socialized creature. I'm not going to get into the flesh and blood thing, the paranormal thing, but they're socialized from what we understand. And we know nothing about these things, but that's what we understand.
right,
But also, they're the ones who get kicked out of the clans, much like I believe mine was. They become rogue, they're disgruntled, they're pissed off. Those are
right.
where we get the encounters that are frightening, right? Now, with that being said, we never heard about Bigfoot being a demon or killing people that I've heard of, or not that I'm aware of. So when
Well,
you surmise all this and you say, you talk about this spiritual warfare, is that which is spirits, or are you pulling that together and encompassing all this phenomenon?
I mean, ultimately, it would be pulling it all together, right? But here's the thing: what are demons, right? So we know that technically, demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, right? So that's what they are technically.
So,
But what happens if they are not disembodied? That's where I'm saying, yes, it's all connected, but if you're not dead and yet you're still of the bloodline, what are you? What's the name that we give to you? In the Bible they were what? Horim, Raphaim, all those kind of things. They had their own clans, their own peoples, and they were not all just giants. They had their names. And today we'd assign those that are alive and in the vicinity that we deal with a name. Sasquatch, Dogman. Does that make them bad? I mean, generally speaking, we know them by the fruit, right? We hear probably 90% bad, just like people, I would say, except that, if you're born out of corruption to that extent, I would imagine that your nature would be to be bad, but is the chance for them to be good there? Sure. I've not met too many, so I don't know. But I do have an interesting tangent that I can go down about my CE5 experiences that kind of helped me to grasp this, but not at first. You want me to go there?
you can take this where you want. I did want to let's talk about the CE5 because I think that's an interesting subject. But I got to ask you this though, really quickly, since you seem to know a little bit about this.
Yeah.
I've read Gary Wayne. I've read Gary Wayne, but Gary, that's the Genesis 6 conspiracy.
Right, right.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, and consider myself that I can pick up on things. That book you have to read over and over and over again because number one is there's so much information. Gary
Mhm.
Wayne says if you try to read it too fast, your head will explode. And I agree with that because there's so much in there. But
It's
like you
hard to
mentioned,
wrap it.
it's hard to wrap your head around. And you talked about the fallen 200
Mhm.
cast out of heaven, I guess you would say, right?
Right.
And men, well, these cast out fallen 200 mated with human women, and they created demigods, right? Now, are you suggesting? Do you think that these demigods are evil, or do you just think that they were just lost souls that God banned from heaven because they went against the word of God?
I mean, theoretically, you know, their existence would be an abomination. All right. So there's that. But like I also mentioned, because it was mentioned, they were given an out. They were given an out. Okay. I don't, I mean, I don't really have the answers. I don't have all the information here. I, I would just
Just
say
but your
that,
thought process. That's all this is about. Just your thoughts, because we all have the thoughts. I have thoughts that are different than Texas and Brandy's and Krista's, and that's why I love doing these shows because what this is, man, is gathering information so we can all sit down and it's all about what if, right? E.F. Hutton, what if? Well, that's applied in the financial world. What if in the paranormal world is the same? That's the way I view it. So
right,
any opinion is not right or wrong.
right. So, I mean, like I said, I'm just going to say, generally speaking, bad. But, you know, being born from dual natures, both of which are image bearers of God on earth as in heaven, as above, so below, they have free will, just like we do. And I think the majority of the time, they just decide to be quote unquote bad. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things that you can sit there and wrap your head around and wrap your head around, and you're never gonna really know the truth until you've experienced them. And then at that point, you can only go from there. You can only know them by the fruits that they've bared from what you have witnessed. And that's where I fall, because like it's such a deep subject, and
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know.
it's a deep subject, and we kind of went down that rabbit hole. And trust me, it's a complicated. I mean, I don't even like really going to the Nephilim and the Fallen 200 and all this because simply I don't. As much as I read up on it and listen to people, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about anything. I just know a lot about everything, right? But it's
Right.
like a minute amount. But yeah, it's a great panel show. We do like a Josh Turner, with Jason McLean, L.A. Marzulli. I just saw on Josh's show the other day. They study that stuff. We
That's
dive into
great.
it. Hey, I got that book by Gary Wayne. I tell you what, I still have to read it, and read it, and read it, and read it because there's just so much we don't know. So we can maybe detract off that. And you talk about the experiences, much like myself. It's hard to process. Growing up in life, I've had shadow people encounters, ghost encounters. I've had stick man encounters. I've had UFO experiences. Don't think I've had an alien experience. Don't know that I had, to be honest with you. But until you process something that's 12 foot tall standing in front of you, your mind just goes berserko, right? Your mind wants to
Mhm.
explode because you can't process it. So you
Yeah.
had made mention that when you talk about certain experiences is where you can really give more a better assimilation, I guess is the word. So you had made mention that you did come across a Bigfoot. And I'd like to hear a little bit about that, once you went through what you saw and how that affected you. Because I know how it affected me. It affected me to the point where I went dark for 6 months, then decided to make a channel. You know,
Mhm.
that's me. So when you saw the Bigfoot, I've never heard the Bigfoot story. So why don't you
Well,
walk us through that?
okay. So, granted, first Bigfoot experience is more of a Bigfoot by proxy because I didn't see it, but it's the funny story. So, buddy of mine and I are coming back home from a run to get stuff real late at night. And we are 100% sober. Nothing has been imbibed. And on the way home, we're out in the middle of desolation. We're going through an area that is known for Bigfoot sightings, ghost sightings, goat man. I mean, it's just known for just all kind of high strangeness. This place is called Matheny's Bridge. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And so he's got to pee and he can't hold it no more. I'm like, bro, we're only 15 minutes from home. Why? Can't you hold it? No, I can't hold it. Okay, fine. So we stop. I pull over. We're in desolation. He gets out. He starts peeing. And I'm a jerk. You might think I'm nice, but I can be mean. So I start tapping my brakes to light him up. And he's over there yelling, "Quit it, dude." I'm like, don't worry. No one can see you. Don't worry about it. He's quit it. And I'm just laying on the brakes. And all of a sudden, he starts screaming his head off. I'm just like, what? What's going on? He's screaming. He's jumping, from the side, trying to get back to the car, just losing his mind. He gets in the car. He's still screaming. He's F and go, dude. F and go. I'm like, what is wrong with you? What is happening? He's grabbing my hand, trying to get me to put it in park. I'm like, fine. Let's go. And he's still screaming as we're going. I'm like, what is wrong? What is happening? He's like, two things. One, I've zipped myself up and I'm bleeding everywhere. I look over at me. He's covered in blood. I'm just like, oh no, dude.
So your buddy's covered in blood. This was from what now? Running or
zipping himself up while peeing from running.
Zip? Oh my gosh.
Yes. And I'm just like,
It reminds me of you remember that movie with out the window, looking out the bathroom window, what's his name? With oh boy, I forgot the name. It was such a long time ago. But yeah, go ahead. Terrible experience. I think if you're a guy, you've experienced that at least once in your lifetime, and it's the worst. It's the worst. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it is. It's very painful. But so I'm like, I'm just like, oh no, dude. Okay. What's number two? What's the second reason? He's like, I noticed when you started flashing your brakes and lighting me up that there was something standing in front of me that was way taller than me, way just altogether bigger than me. And every time you touched your brakes, its eyes lit up, and I'm standing not 10 feet away from it. So I'm like, oh, well, what was it? Sam Squatch. That's what he says. I'm like, okay, Bigfoot by proxy. So, like that story. It's the funny one. It's to bring
that's Beans and Frank. Something about Mary. A couple of people in chat, Scott M and Catherine. Yeah, I had a mind fart there. I don't know, brain fart. I guess I seen it a zillion times back in the 90s, right?
1 second.
Out. Yeah.
Keep talking.
There's spam. Fisher spam. I like that can. Look at the Fishers. But yes, something about Mary, everybody. That was quite painful. Quite painful. Thank you, Be Kind, for the awesome super chat. Be Kind's another great person I met in Alabama. I'll tell a quick story. I'll get your thoughts together really quick. So I want to say a shout out to Be Kind. What I love about the conference is Be Kind. I got to the hotel. Be Kind's right there. She's out talking to a bunch of people. And good old BMR, I left my contact solution. I left it back at home. Well, actually at Krista's house because, excuse me, I flew into St. Louis and drove up with Krista and her husband. And BMR always forgets at least one thing that he needs whenever I travel. And lo and behold, the thing I really need is the solution for your contacts. So I get there. I'm not even checked into my room. There's about 12 people in the lobby sitting around the lounge area. And I get there, start talking with everybody, met Be Kind in person, a whole bunch of other great people. So I went on Donnie Cho and I went on about talking about, yeah, I got to go to Walmart's, Walgreens, whatever, and get some contact stuff later. So no big deal. I go up to my room to unpack and all that. I get a text from Be Kind. Well, she went and bought me this solution and a contact lens case. Did not expect that. Be Kind. Thank you so much. I know I thanked you many times, but that's such a great story. And that's what I love about all the people in my chat room because Be Kind, number one, is fantastic. But that's why I love doing this because the community that we've developed here and the people that have come in our chat rooms, you guys are just fantastic. And that's just one of the many stories. So thank you to Be Kind for being so kind. You're awesome.
Yeah. You're awesome. Be kind.
Yes, she is. I'm sure you met her as well.
Yeah, I did. She was awesome. So I've got another story.
Yes.
I'm gonna tie this in a little bit with like our earlier subject line, okay? Of
Yeah, go
talking
for
about
it, brother.
spiritual stuff. So this is gonna be like a brief overview of like my CE5 stuff, okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So first of all, disclaimer: don't do it, folks. CE5 bad. Don't do it.
That's
You
what I
don't want
heard.
this.
That's what I heard.
You don't want this because after I initiated this stuff is when everything just started popping off and going crazy. You know, like that one Bigfoot experience and me chasing UFOs should have been it, realistically. But it wasn't. So an interesting experience I had with my one of my very first CE5 actually is a being that I came into contact with. And this, surprisingly, for whatever reason, this one is the only one that I am able to remember a bit of detail with. And, you know, I'm not going to talk about all of it, but one of the questions I had for it was, talking in like regards to all the abduction stories that we hear, and I asked it, I was like, what's up with the Greys? Why do we keep hearing the stuff that's bad about them and sometimes good? And he essentially told me that it was about perspective. And he said, looking in terms of good and evil is very primitive of you. I'm like, oh, thanks, that's nice. And he's like, the world and reality is more easily seen in shades of gray. I said, oh, okay, tell me more. He said, what is good for the ant might be bad for the human. What's good for the human might be bad for the ant. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I was like, well, expounding upon that, good and evil, do you guys have God? Do you guys have this concept? It's like, oh, yeah, of course we have God. I'm like, okay. He's like, how could you not? I mean, just look at creation all around you. If you can't find God in that, something's wrong. That's pretty good advice, right? And I said, well, that's interesting. On this planet, we have a guy who is named, I'm fixing to say Jesus, but he cuts me off. He does not want to hear the name. The mood
Really?
changes. He's angry. He's like, look, I don't care to hear about your theology. I'm like, okay. He's like, but I'll leave you with this. If there was somebody that talked about love above all else, you should probably follow that guy. I'm like, okay. So that's interesting. He doesn't want to hear about Jesus. Okay. This doesn't really register till later. But back in regards to the Greys. And I'm like, okay, so what about them? Talk to me about them and these bad stories, right? And he told me basically that they're just basically flesh robots that are created. And he
Flesh
said,
robots. I've never heard that one. Interesting.
yeah. And he said, they are empty vessels. They are just as likely to have s- another alien being broadcast into them as they are a demon broadcast into them.
Hmm.
Interesting, and it was, and I just took that at face value. Like, okay, that's interesting that you are tying this together. Okay. So, okay, so these things apparently have the same ability as a demon. Interesting. And yet they're always seen together and they're apparently working together. It's like, how does that work? These are questions that I ask later. How does that work? And you also don't want to hear the name Jesus. Interesting, interesting. Okay. So I give that story and that brief overview. And I talked to him about other stuff too, like about other stories, other beings that we've heard stories about. He had interesting views to tell me about it. And another interesting detail about it is that he told me basically that we as humans are very lucky to have such abundant animal life on this planet. I said, okay, where are you going with this? He's like, you guys should really focus on, instead of merging with AI. He's like, what you really should focus on is becoming the best humans you can be genetically. I'm like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, you should change your DNA. You should give
I know
yourselves,
this guy telling you this.
yeah, the alien that's telling me
Dale,
this.
Dale, yeah, Dale, yeah, correct. That's the guy. I call him
Right.
the guy. Yeah.
I do too. The alien's telling me, he's like, you should really like think about changing like your muscular to be the same muscle cells as a chimp. You should think about the muscles in your legs having the same cells as say an antelope. Change your sense of smell, get some dog DNA in there, change your eyesight, get some cat DNA in there. you know take take these things from these critters and inject them into yourself. What does that create if you do that?
Well,
Chimera.
well, blasphemy of a lot. I mean, yeah, you should have asked the alien. Should have been asked, "What do you do with experimentation abducting human beings?"
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of like where I was going from. I was like, why? And he's like, it's about perspective. You can't just sit here and deem what we do as evil. You don't have our perspective. I'm like, and all the time I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, you understand if you guys actually needed help, like to get some DNA and do some hybridization type junk, if you really needed that to save your species, I mean, how many weird people do we know? People will be lining up in droves to help, solve that problem for you. There's
Absolutely.
plenty of them. To go in the dark of night and take people against their will and do all this crazy stuff. I mean, they can tell me it's not evil from their perspective all they want to, but it is. We'd help. If you needed help, we'd help. It wouldn't be an issue. There's no reason to go and do all this nefarious stuff and against people's will, create hybrids and all this. There's no reason to do it against people's will.
Certainly,
You know,
number one, not against people's will at all. An alien certainly abduct us and experiment on us through without our permission. You
right?
hear about the cattle mutilations and such. And here's the thing too: what you're even talking about. if you look at, and everyone knows I believe in God, and that's the gist of it. I'm not really a church goer, but I believe in God, Jesus Christ. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school 7 years, Monday through Friday, every day in church. I can recite the entire Mass. But isn't it evil? You could actually say that the world we live in is inherently evil when you talk about cloning. If you don't get with if you're a man and a woman, you get married, you have children. That's the only thing that we should create. You can take this deep. Injecting DNA and making clones, or experimenting and making hybrid dogmen as killing machines. We've experimented and heard about the militant dogman, which I do happen to believe, everybody, that our government does create militant dogman. I do think that they bred them as a fighting machine. They lost control of them. And the ones that have turned and they can't control them, as I said, how can you? They're experimenting. I think they do release them in the national parks. I've done several shows on that. I believe they're responsible for a lot of the 411. But getting back to my earlier point, God wanted man and woman to procreate. That's as far as I know, all that should happen. We shouldn't have science and medicine. And look, we're in the United States, man. We're in the year 2024. There are things going on in labs that none of us know anything about. In fact, the technology we have today was created 20 years ago. That's how advanced it is.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, anything out of the creation of what God intended us to do is technically evil, right? Unless it's creating something to advance life. But I think we all have our own date. It looks like Fisher of Spam froze up on me. And I don't have my phone on me. Let me grab my phone. Hang on, you guys. I don't know where Fisher's at. He lost his connection. Okay, I think he lost his connection. I'm sure that he will. Maybe somebody doesn't like Fisher of Spam. Maybe he's onto something. We always joke around about the government watching us. Are we being shadow banned or whatever? Are we on a subject that's too deep for somebody or some governments? And I got to say something. I do not mean I got to retract something because as a host of a show and being a media personality, which I am, it's a fact. I'm not suggesting, because I haven't read chat, I'm not suggesting that doing experiments to the benefit of humanity is evil. I don't. First of all, I don't believe it's evil doing what we do in the world today, because the world is an evil place in which we live. I think the advancements of what we do in society are to the betterment of mankind. Right now, some people will say that that's not correct, and I only mentioned about the man and the woman procreating, if creating families is the only way to go. I know today there are many, many avenues because this world is so big, it's so vast, and I believe one day we'll all be judged. And so I'm not negative against anything that helps mankind. But I also believe there are things that mankind does today, right, that is a detriment to us. I believe that they are controlling our population. I believe they're killing off Americans, people of the world. I believe there is a new world order. I believe that we're not ran by our government. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat, which to me does not even exist, it don't exist. We are in a deep state society, right? We're ran by somebody else. Direction that Biden takes isn't from Biden. He's a puppet. Any president today is a puppet, you guys. The goal is to eliminate the population, and they want to have the one new world order. Now, it's a topic for an entirely different show. As you know, we talk about everything, and I got off on a tangent on that. But I want to express to you all that no, I do not think that experimentation research is evil. I do not, and I believe in God and all of that. And I think what we do today is a benefit. But I also believe today that what we do is not for our benefit. It's not for the benefit of Pancho Zorge, Jamie Brinson, Jonestead Farm, JoJo from the UK, Catherine Gay. No, no, no. They're working against us. They don't work for us. I do believe on that. That I think would be a great topic. I'm gonna have to do that with the gang on a show, I think. Hi, Diane. So I'm gonna see if Fisher's back with us. I just had to throw that in there just to clean up a few things I said, just so you guys are on the same page as I. Fisher spam with the spam can.
Hey.
Are we okay? Good. Okay, man, you're back.
Yeah. So this is a little weird. My phone overheated and turned off. That's never happened to me before.
Well, with today's technology, don't they prevent against that now?
I mean, you would think, right?
You would think.
So
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep the video part of me off and keep my
Yeah.
phone up against the water bottle that's cold and make sure that I can do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Well, typically, if you do that, it does. If you just take down the video portion, it does help out.
Yeah, so let's see if I can't prevent that. So I'm sorry, guys. That's weird. That's never happened before. I've done this a couple times now.
BMR's often gone solo, and I've been doing this enough where I can come up with anything on the fly.
Right.
But yeah.
All right.
So
anyway,
I went off on a little tangent while you were gone anyway to interject some of the things I had said about certain things, what's happening in society in America with the government, the medical system, and everything else. I just want to make sure people understood what I was trying, my point I was getting across, because the thousands of people are going to watch this show and they're going to call it BMR, this, that, and the other, and I wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I don't mean to bring any smoke or heat at you, man.
No, these shows are all about the truth, right? I'm here to discuss what I believe to be the truth. Whether people agree or not is really on them. We all are of free will, or are we of free will? Another topic to discuss. I'm coming up with all sorts of topics, you guys. My brain is just rolling now, but it's thanks to the Fisher of Spam for opening this can of spam here this afternoon. Thanks for everybody for coming on in. If you're new here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, Texas Front Porch. Shout out for Josh Turner for sending a lot of you folks my way. He's a great dude. I support the what he does over there on his channel. So, with that being said, well, we just go talk something a little. Let's go. Let's lighten up the show a little bit. Now, I see that my internet icon is on. I hope I don't phase out on anybody. So,
interesting.
Ghost spirits.
Yeah, I've got a couple of.
Let's talk about. And I go on. And I know you mentioned shadow people, because I've seen shadow people, but so many topics to cover, Fisher. Well, you're probably gonna have to come back, I'm sure. But ghosts and spirits, your thoughts, your experiences. Let's get into that.
All right. I'm going to also expand on that to sleep paralysis, because it's also involved.
Well, I've got that as well. Thank you, Keith from Michigan. Keith, 1675. I got your email earlier, Keith. I've yet to read it, but like I said, I'll be getting back with you on that. Thank you. Hey, Duke, for coming on in.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Spam, let's do it.
All right. So, needless to say, after CE5 stuff happens, I have an alien experience. It was crazy. Basically, the thing that gave me my PTSD, okay? All right. So, after all that stuff, though, I begin to have sleep paralysis episodes, and it's never really been a thing for me before up until after all this stuff happens. And now, granted, once I have my general experiences, my views on God and everything, it's changed. I'm not I'm not the person that I am today. All right. I'm like, everything's aliens, everything's Anunnaki, yada yada. That's basically where my head's at. And then things start going down, and it just feeds into it basically. So I remember, I believe this was my very first sleep paralysis event. It was after we moved. We were living on Lake Gunnersville, and for some odd reason, I wake up, but I'm unable to move at all, and I am freaked out. And I mean, I guess you could say my third eye's opened. So I mean, I can I can sense what's going down. And to me, from my perspective, I feel something just cold and dark approaching me. And it is terrifying, and I cannot move. I'm turned away from where the door even is. I can't see it, but I can feel it getting closer and getting closer and getting closer, to the point where I can now tell that it is in the room. And then all of a sudden, the pressure changes once again. And I feel something just t- teleport, appear, whatever verbiage you want to assign to it, right beside me. And I, I, from what I can feel coming off of this thing that just popped up now, is peace and anger, and I literally feel it put its hand on my hip with one hand, and the other hand raise towards the entity that's coming into the room. And I can't hear, but I can feel the air, if that makes sense. Like, the thing that appears and has its hand on me now is yelling at whatever has decided to come into the room. I can feel the sound waves moving in the air as this thing is yelling at it. Mm. It's yelling at it for. It's just. I mean, it just keeps on. It keeps on and keeps on. And then all of a sudden, both disappear in an instant, or in an instant. And as soon as it disappears, sleep paralysis is done. I'm up. I can move. I am freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, what just happened? I grab my pistol, my emotional support pistol, and I am tactically clearing the house. I'm going into every single room, cutting the pie, using the angles, looking at every single part of the room. And the wife comes home from work. And she's like, what in the world are you doing? And guys, I'm so happy. I'm so relieved. I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much for coming. You have no idea what just happened. And I explained it to her, and she's like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you, but glad it's done. I'm like, yes, me too. Me too. Thank you. I mean, practically saved me from it. That's the way I feel about it. Even though it was whatever appeared beside me. So and I don't know what to make of it. I think maybe something angelic.
Well, let me ask you this about sleep paralysis. I've suffered from sleep paralysis. First of all, what is your actual, what do you believe sleep paralysis to be?
I think whatever it is, it's something that is, I mean, something that's able to cast it on you, I guess you could say. It, well, whenever they want to appear and do something to you. I mean, every single UFO alien abduction story starts with it, right?
Well, let me ask you, when you say they want to appear, what do you mean by they?
Whoever it is, whether it be, in quotations, an alien or something that is demonic. They certainly have the power to immobilize you if they so choose.
I want your thoughts on this. You've had sleep paralysis. I'm going to give you my sleep paralysis.
Yeah, man.
Bout. A lot of people have followed me. You've heard this before. I get it, but there's also a lot of newer people that have been subscribing of late. But this is something that has plagued me. Now, I have not had this in probably about close to a year now. I did a show about the nightmares that I was experiencing. In fact, last week, a show. I had a Sunday night show that I went. Excuse me. I had to talk about. I woke up middle of the night and did a show on my nightmares. If you guys haven't seen that, go
Yeah.
check it out. It's simply called Nightmares on my channel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to talk about that. I'm breaking that down for another show. But thank you, Jamie. That's awesome. Super sticker. But I'm going to, for those that are newer, and I want you to get your analysis because I always run this by people, especially if they've had sleep paralysis bouts. So I'm not going to, I'm going to get it. I'm just going to give you the Reader's Digest format here of it version. It just would happen to me all the time when I'd be doing watching documentaries on TV about creepy stuff. Now it could be UFOs, could be aliens, could be Bigfoot, it could be actually yes. I watched some exorcism things which involve some demonic stuff. Again, BMR ain't a demon fan of the demon. I believe in God. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be watching these, and so in the area of my home where I basically watch television. I've got a recliner, and then there's a hallway that leads down a hallway to where my furnace is. So I'm fully awake, sitting in my recliners, fully awake, and I think I was watching a show on possession, to be honest with you, if I can recall. And I'm watching it, and I know that I'm awake, and I notice this smoke or this steam starts rolling down my hallway, right around to the corner of where I am watching TV. It's hovering about a foot above ground, and it's transparent, and it's a steam. And I immediately, at this point, everybody, I immediately get up because I think my furnace, and I don't smell smoke, but I'm worried. It's about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning because I'm up at all hours most of the time anyway. I run down the hall. I really bypass the smoke because I'm running through it thinking it's coming from my furnace. I check my furnace. There's nothing wrong with my furnace. Okay, so and then when I ran through that smoke, it kind of dissipated. So by the time I get out from the back of the room where the furnace is, Pancho George, thanks for coming back, man. That was kind of my fault. You're fine. You know, I mean, you're a good dude. Thank you so much for the super chat. I've washed my hands of that. I didn't read the entire chat, Pancho. So I personally now apologize to you for that. You're cool. You're cool. You're a cool guy. Thanks for being a subscriber, and thank you for the $10. Thank you. So, anyways, back to my point is I'm going back. I'm going back to I'm going back. This steam's gone. I'm like, wow, that was really weird, but I'm still leery. So I'm figuring, well, I'm going to call my furnace guy in the morning anyway because I still don't know what happened. So I sit back in the chair and I'm watching this show again. And I'm up, and all of a sudden, here, about 10 minutes later into this thing, that steam, that smoke, whatever you want to call it, hovering above the ground, starts coming rolling down the hallway. Now I go to get up again, but now you guys, and I'm awake. I'm fully awake, everybody. Now I cannot get up. I can't move. My arms and legs are frozen. My arms are on the top of my chair, and I can't move. I can't yell out. Well, there's no one at my house to yell out to, but I try to yell out. I can't speak. I can't even move my head. Now I'm watching TV, and all I can see the smoke is now all I can do is roll my eyes from left to right to north and south, up and down, left to right. So I'm looking at the TV. I know I'm up. I tried to pinch myself, but I can't even move my arms, or my hands, or my fingers. So I'm looking at this smoke coming down the hallway. Now all of a sudden, I freaky. Now it doesn't exactly. Now it kind of circles around my chair, and it's swirling around my chair, and I'm getting this really creeped out feeling. I'm petrified inside. My emotions are all bent up. They're all stowed inside me because I can't release any energy. I can't scream. I can't get up. I swear this lasted. It seemed like it lasted till sunrise.
Yep.
But I'm watching TV. It was petrifying. I saw the Bigfoot yell, scream, and yell at me, and I went in a state of paralysis as well. But this was way worse. And this was after my encounter.
Mm-hmm.
But this was immensely terrifying. I thought literally a demon was in my house. Again, sunrise, right? It comes. Finally, it's morning breaks. I snap out of this. Now I'm thinking to myself, everybody, was I dreaming? Did I just have an unending nightmare? So I called my furnace guy. He comes out, nothing wrong with my furnace. So that accounts for that kind of, squashed my theory that my furnace was overheating or whatever. So anyway, several months go by and I talk to several of my friends, talk to some other people. They say, hey, man, you had some sort of bout with sleep paralysis or whatever. And people, I'm still not clear on what sleep paralysis is. I don't know if it's somebody invading my space, some entity invading my space. I don't know what it is. I think it's something with lucid dreaming, and then your mind is open while you're asleep. Things, basic things like that. Couple months later, okay, I'm watching. It's late at night again. I'm watching the same show. I'm watching whatever I'm watching. Again, something creepy. Here comes that. Now, prior to this, though, the second time around, someone suggested, hey, man, you believe in God? I said, yes, I believe in God. I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic school for 7 years. Every day went to church, Monday through Friday. Believe in God, blah, blah, blah. Well, if that happens again, reach out to the Lord and say the Our Father, say the Lord's Prayer if that happens to you. So 2-3 months go by, you guys, and sure enough, here comes that steam rolling down the hallway again, right? Circling around the chair. Same thing, you guys. I'm a paralysis, can't yell, can't scream, can't move, can only use my eyes. And then I remember what I was told prior. I start saying the Our Father who art in heaven, right? I start going through it. I'm not even halfway through the prayer. I snapped out of it. Smoke was gone. Paralysis went away. TV's still on. And it was fine. So
How interesting.
long story short, I'm thinking because I called out to Jesus, spoke to Jesus, and my intentions are good because when I speak to Jesus, my intentions are good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm intent with my prayers. I pray every night. It went away. So my question to you, and I ask this to everybody that comes on the show, when we talk about sleep paralysis, did I have an intervention with a demonic force? Is my question to you. In your opinion, I know no one's professionals here.
100%. In my opinion, 100%, friend. That's
the thing about, before I'll let you elaborate, but the thing I hated about this, it seems so lifelike and real. I don't think I'm sleeping. I'm awake as I am right now talking to you and watching the people in chat.
Yep.
I'm awake. I'm not sleeping. At least I don't think I am. Or is that my brain playing tricks on me?
Whenever anything happens, man, our self-defense mechanism of the brain is to try to rationalize everything. We'll rationalize ourselves out of experiences if we let ourselves. In my personal opinion, I would say 100%. 100%. Now, I would say, like for instance, on the first event of yours, do you remember at all what you were thinking while watching said creepy show?
I was just taking notes, man, for what I do as a podcaster. Really, when I watch TV today, it's all research. You can call me armchair researcher. Well, so what? I need information when I have shows, right? And if I'm out in the field, I just accumulate data, man. So I'm well spoken when I come on a show, so I don't look like an idiot. So I happen to be researching something that I knew I was going to talk about, and yeah, so.
So
That was the extent of it. Now it hasn't happened since, though. It has not happened since.
right.
And 2 Sundays ago, for those that did not see it, it's on my channel called Nightmares. I had this terrible nightmare, and I always have these same nightmares. I haven't had them now. I had my house actually cleansed and blessed 2 weeks ago. By the way, these nightmares I had 2 Sundays ago were so terrifying to me, and it's on my channel. It's on, under nightmares once again. Yeah, I did a video or whatever, or it was a live show actually. And yeah, I took a lot of advice from a lot of people, and many people reached out to me, and I took all their advice, and I haven't had them since. In fact, today I sleep very peacefully.
Right.
But it's always though for me, I cannot watch anything creepy, and this it was even as a kid, because as a kid, I could not get through the Exorcist movie at least once. I finally watched it 2 years ago at 12 in the afternoon, and I suffered through it because I
Mhm.
believe that I believe in God, therefore I believe in the devil, and I believe that we can get possessed by things. And I've had let things into my home as a 25-year-old when I saw the shadow people. I brought things into the house unbeknownst to me, and I wasn't even involved with the paranormal back then. All the things that happened in my life, I know happened for a reason. And that's why I think I do this today.
Well, here's what I'm going to say, man. And perhaps against my professional better judgment, I'm going to be candid and real with you, brother. Okay? What I'm going to say is when you look into the abyss, it looks back at you. And it's
Well,
going
yeah,
to assess. It's going to assess. Are you a threat? Are you really a threat? Because if you're not a threat, I guarantee you your experiences are going to be pleasant and good, if you have any at all. That lie is not going to self-perpetuate itself. You know what I mean? So
I
even if you mention God at least once, somehow, some way, and whatever the topic might be, once you do that, and I'm going to say that no matter what, you are planting a seed. Now, you can't lead a horse to water, right? You can't, or, well, you can, but you can't make them drink, actually. Sorry, I got that a little mixed up. Words equals hard. But, anyways, I guess what I'm trying to say is if somehow, some way, no matter what, eventually, if they think that somehow words you say can plant said seed, that will eventually lead those who want to know to seek out the living waters. So once you do that, no matter how small it is, you are going to draw their ire, and they will appear to you. They will show you how powerful they can be. Now, because I've experienced the exact same thing to different extents. But what I'm telling you, Rob, is that no matter what, man, you're out here doing good. You're there doing your research. You're trying to glean some kind of information that you can give back to the audience. And no matter if they seek the waters out or not is irrelevant. Are you helping somebody? Because I can tell you right now that listening to you and all of our friends, it's very therapeutic to me.
yeah.
At the very least, you guys do so much good, provide so much help to all of us that if somebody else is under oppression, your seed that you're planting, that little tiny mustard seed, has the ability to move a mountain. It has the ability to move a mountain in somebody's life. And to them, that is a threat. They can manifest and be whatever they want to, whether they are going to be coming at you in a spiritual form or They come at you with their other agents, for lack of a better term, that are here in the flesh. You are open season to them as soon as they feel like there is the possibility. So you become in the crosshairs of these things. So whether somebody wants to take that to whatever stage of thought where, oh, the government's listening to you, oh, the demons are listening to you, oh, whatever, oh, your phone just shut down because you're getting a little close to the truth. Did it really though? Oh, let's not say that there are forces that affect that. No, that's coincidence. It's coincidence. We're going to rationalize ourselves out of the experience. So that way that you are no longer a threat. And you can take it however you want, but honestly, I feel like that's the truth, bud.
Well, I think what you said does make sense, and I do think that I do spread good. I think all my people, the blondes and Tex, and all my other friends that have podcasts, I think we do spread the good word.
You most certainly do.
I think that we do provide therapy. I've said this ad nauseum. The only reason I started this channel is because I was lost and alone in the world when I had my Bigfoot encounter, if you want to call it Bigfoot. I was lost, alone, nowhere to go. I was being judged. I was being ridiculed. And, I started a channel, and it was out of happenstance because of something that happened. I wrote this book because of what happened to me, because people in the world experience things that are terrible. They don't want to talk about them. They have PTSD, right? And when I have people on my show, it's because it's a safe place to go. And I provide I think at least that I do provide a safe platform for everybody as much as my other colleagues do. And, that's what I do. I do this for fame and fortune. I do it as a therapy session because when I first spoke on my encounters and what happened to me, it's therapeutic for me. And I said, well, if this works for me, speaking out, being public about it, then I imagine that I can reach the masses and help the masses. So that's my number one goal behind having a channel, is to help people. And I thank you for for expressing that. And I've heard it several other times. So when people say that to me, I know I'm doing my job, which is awesome.
So let me actually tie that back into a story, okay? I'm going to skip over a bunch of shadow people experiences. I'm going to go to like the last one I had, because for me, after my experiences, like I said, I was lost. My head wasn't in the right spot. Everything was explainable because aliens, yada, yada, right? Not God. So eventually I stumble on my research of trying to find these answers onto people like you, onto people like Barton, onto people like Tony and Josh, and you guys plant that seed, maybe, just maybe, these things are actually connected back to that demonic realm somehow, some shape. We don't know exactly how, but maybe, just maybe, there's something there. And for me, that was enough to go, you know what? Maybe I need to go back to my roots. Maybe I need to start exploring this and be the person who I used to be once again. And my last shadow person experience was the time where I, for the first time in all of my experiences that I've had victory. So I'm laying there in bed. It's just me and the daughter. This time, wife's at work. I'm sleeping in because I'm working night shifts like I am now. And all of a sudden, I wake up, but I can't move. I'm in sleep paralysis. My eyes are open, and lo and behold, there is a figure right in front of my face with its face. It's very wispy and ghosty, kind of. But it also resembles a lot that alien that I saw that night. It's like a mixture of both for whatever reason. I don't know why, but that's what it looks like. And it's just jeering at me. It's just making all these horrible faces. And it's like, ha, 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 I got you. You can't move. Look how powerless you are to stop me.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, it looks over and past me to my daughter.
Mm.
And it gets just the biggest grin on its face, like, look what I am fixing to do to you. And it goes over and gets in her face. Now, at this time, I am back to who I am, or was. I am saved by the blood of the Lamb. I know what to do. It doesn't matter if I'm frozen or not, because my mind is going and I am calling out to Jesus. Jesus, I need you. This thing cannot be allowed to torment me, but more importantly, my daughter. I will die before I let this go on. Jesus, I need you. I need you to free me. I need you to help me get rid of this thing. And then suddenly, I am able to move. I can move. I turn over and I grab this incorporeal formed thing by the wrist as it's floating there in the air and yank it away from my daughter all the way to the other side of the bed. And I'm still holding on to it somehow. And it looks at me, and all of a sudden, that face has changed. It's in horror. It's the one that's scared now, because now I am holding it down and I am screaming in its face, Jesus, 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 Jesus. And it's just sitting there writhing in agony. And then all of a sudden, it disappears. It's gone. My hands collapse. I'm no longer holding on to anything.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm looking around. I look at my daughter. I see that she's actually awake. I was like, hey, did you see anything? She says, no, not really. I said, did you hear anything? She said, just you, Daddy. Just you.
Jeez.
I'm like, well, praise be to God. Looks like Daddy, for the first time in his life, had some victory against these things. I said, all right, it's time to go to bed.
Yeah. And
Everything's good to go now.
it's all these small victories that lead to something else at the end of this crazy world we live in, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. But that goes back to what I said, man. For me in my life, you guys, all y'all had to do was just plant a little seed, just to make me go, you know what? Maybe what I think and the impressions that I've gotten from talking to these things is wrong. Maybe, just maybe, let's go back and see if things change, because it's pretty common for me to have these experiences at this point. And once I made that change, like I said, victory was finally mine. Victory was finally God's. He could finally prevail in my life for me. And all it took was you guys planting that seed. All you have to do is help one person. And as soon as you do, you are a threat. And people can make of that whatever they want. I don't care.
No, that's
I'm
I
I'm telling you, man, you are doing good. You really are. So
well,
don't ever beat yourself up or think that you're not, because you are
no.
doing good for all of us, and we thank you.
No, well, I thank you for the kind words. I thank everybody on the chat for the kind words. This has been a great show, and yeah, I do think I'm doing good. I always say that I think I am. That's why I do this, really. Yeah, there's little perks along the way, everybody. But I started this and I continue to do it today because I love doing it first and foremost, and I love helping people. Really, also just as highly as more highly regarded, to be honest with you, because I know where I was in 2018, and today I'm good, and hopefully this show helps other people get to being good. Shout out to World Bigfoot Central. Subscribe to Duke if not already. He always has great shows. Love me some Duke. Subscribe. Also, be kind. Keith, Jamie, Poncho, thank you so much for the awesome super chats this afternoon. We run out of time because I got things I need to do. As if you missed the beginning of the show, I got a whole bunch of mess to clean up in my yard, but that's okay. It's a nice day today. Mr. Fisher Spam, any place we can find you, or you're just pretty much a dude that hangs out in the chat room and provided us, by the way, one of the best shows I've had in quite some time, Fisher Spam.
Yeah, well, I feel like I kind of went all over the place, but maybe.
Well, you know what? That's what we do around here. We go all over the place.
Yeah. Well, as far as finding me, I mean, generally speaking, I'm in chat with everybody.
Find Fisher Spam in the chat room and show him some love.
Yeah, but as a thought, if you like me, it might not be a bad idea to subscribe to my channel because
you do have. See, I didn't even know that. What's it called? Spam can of spam.
Well, I assume you can just subscribe to me, generally speaking, right? I mean, I subscribe to some of us in audience.
Fisher. Well, Fisher Spam, that's new news to me. I will look you up in a little bit here. Fisher Spam, YouTube. Check them out.
Yeah, I might be having a show come out anytime soon. You never know what I'm up to, man. I think.
Well, good. Well, good, because I know you're going to be on with Krista and Paranormal Paul. You're filling in for Paul.
Yeah. Me and Krista are going to be hosting Paul's show on Saturday, so you can check me out there.
Yeah,
so that'll be a good time, I hope.
You can check him out in all our chat rooms, of course. And I checked him out in Alabama. You're such a good looking guy, man. Good looking guy. And I know I love women, but I thought Fisher Spam was some 69-year-old crotchety old person. He's not. He's got a nice flowing beard, as Dave Scott would say. Very nice, very impressive. I was impressed with this show. I was impressed with everybody in the chat room, as always. If you're new here, subscribe to Bigfoot Mr. Rob on YouTube, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube, Texas Front Porch, and of course, my buddy World Bigfoot Radio. Well, actually, World Bigfoot Central. Thanks to the people from Josh Turner. Check out Josh Mondays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. He's a great guy. I love his show. A lot of information. He's a wealth of knowledge, especially in the things we talked about earlier about the Nephilim, as is Duke Sullivan. Gary Wayne, the book. It'll make your mind explode. Check it out if you're into that, because I tell you what, I had to read it 10 times to understand it, and I still don't get all of it. Fisher Spam, there's showing his pretty little face for one last time. Whoa, there's the book. Thank you so much for that. My book available on Amazon. It's available on Amazon. Thanks to Fisher Spam. Thanks to the people who left the chats. I already shouted out your names a couple times. I do appreciate that. Today is Thursday night, so I'll be on tonight. Malika Rollins unveiling her new show, our Paranormal World. I am her first guest on the show. We're talking. I don't know what we're talking about. I'll come up with something. You know me. I can come up with all sorts of things. Don't forget my new show Saturday nights at midnight. It's called Late Night with BMR and the gang. So that's doing pretty well. And I think I'm rambling now. With that being said, love you all. Appreciate you. Give me a like, subscribe if new. And I just got to find the old button here, but I'll guarantee you this. I'm faster than text.
Bye, y'all.